Hi everyone, welcome back to Visually Hidden Selects. I'm Peter O'Brien, and today I'd like to talk to you about True Romance from 1993, directed by Tony Scott and written by Quentin Tarantino. This is one of the few films that he's written that he has not directed, and it is in fact the first script he ever completed. It was actually a part of a much bigger script that was not only the story of True Romance, but also the story of Natural Born Killers. Basically a mini-series of violence and murder and crime that nobody was going to film. So he broke it up into two stories. True Romance, he did try to film part of on his own. There's a short film out there that he never got finished called My Best Friend's Birthday. At the same time, he also had the script for Reservoir Dogs, which a lot of people were starting to read, and he really wanted to direct that film himself. True Romance, he was okay with letting go, and so he sold it, but again, it's the word on the page remains the same. It's just the director and their vision for it. The director for this film is Tony Scott, as most people know is the director of Top Gun. It's kind of funny because I don't really like Tony Scott as a director. I'm not really a fan of any of his films, but I love this movie. A lot of his films seem like long-form music videos. They have a lot of fast cuts and a lot of fast action and very dramatic lighting and smoke-filled rooms. And for some reason, it just happens to work with True Romance in a way that it does not work for Beverly Hills Cop 2. And it's just kind of a perfect storm between the writing and Tony Scott's direction and the cast. It all comes together to make this kind of remarkable little picture that was kind of overlooked when it was originally released. It was not a box office smash. It was not a great success. It was kind of a sleeper that developed a cult following throughout the years, and it continues to just grow with its reputation. I mean, a lot of the cast, if they weren't notorious at the time, they have since become notorious, which just adds to the pedigree of this particular film. The film follows a pair of young lovers who meet under false pretenses. Christian Slater plays Clarence Worley, a comic book nerd, pop culture aficionado, Elvis worshiper, and on his birthday, his boss hires a call girl for him named Alabama, played by Patricia Arquette, and the two just hit it off in a big way, so much so that Alabama forsakes her profession and they wind up getting married the next day. From that point on, it is non-stop conflict throughout the rest of the film. I was 10 or 11 years old the first time I saw this movie, so at the time it didn't necessarily register for me the significance of this cast. As time has gone on and I've got to know these actors through their body of work, it still like kind of rattles my mind as to like how this perfect cast of characters came together. And a lot of the cast, they're only in one or two scenes, just sprinkled throughout the film, and it just gives it this richness and this flavor. All these character actors, and in some cases stars, that are just playing a unique little character to just spice up the film. I mean, Gary Oldman, he's only in, I think, 2 scenes, and he kind of steals the movie. His reputation for the character that he played in this film is notorious. And if you look up interviews with Gary Oldman, he's specifically stated that Drexel in True Romance is one of his all-time favorite characters that he's ever played. It's just such a unique, eclectic cast. It's pretty phenomenal. I think 2 of the highlights in this cast are Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken. And Christopher Walken, again, he only has 1 scene that he shares with Dennis Hopper, and it is arguably one of the greatest scenes ever filmed. It might be the best scene in this film, and it is just a little side jaunt from the main story where these 2 heavyweights of the acting profession kind of face off. I mean, you could perform this on the stage and people would be on the edge of their seats. I think next to Gary Oldman, Christopher Walken, Dennis Hopper, the biggest scene stealer in this film has got to be Brad Pitt as Floyd, the roommate. He appears in the second half of the film, and every time he shows up on screen, it's very, very satisfying because he's not the handsome, charming leading man that we've come to know. He's just this background stoner burnout character, and he plays it so well, and he brings so much to the character. As he's written on the page, it's not a very significant role, but Brad Pitt's approach to it and his personality and his characteristics, mannerisms that he puts into Floyd just make him stand out. Another standout element in this film is the score by Hans Zimmer. The main theme, which plays over the opening credits and sort of throughout the entire film, is a piece called You're So Cool. And it's very reminiscent of a piece of music from a film called Badlands, made about 20 years earlier in 1973 by Terrence Malick. In Badlands, there's a piece of music called Grassenhauer, composed by Carl Orff, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. I have to think, considering the parallels between the stories in each film, it's no coincidence, and Hans Zimmer is probably just building off of it and paying homage and tribute to that piece of music. But it's still awesome music, and the theme from True Romance really is just a standout piece of music because it's such a light piece of music, but the film has such dark themes and tones. So it's just kind of this like beautiful pulse that flows throughout this film and this story. One of the things that I love about this film is the juxtaposition of the settings. The film starts out in Detroit in the wintertime, so it's dark, it's snowy, it's overcast, everything has this kind of blue filter on it, and it just looks very, very pale and sickly. And then about halfway through the film, the story shifts and transitions into a Los Angeles setting, and everything becomes warm and bright and sunny, and it's just a very nice visual dynamic and a juxtaposition of the settings and for the characters and their transition throughout the story. Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette both deliver just very strong performances. They are very believable as Clarence and Alabama, and not only that, but just as like two young lovers. They were both in their early 20s when they made this film, and Christian Slater specifically, he just has a very interesting arc because when the film starts, he kind of comes off as this kind of nerdy but cocky sort of young man, and just the circumstances that arise throughout the film just push him into another realm. He never loses his core sensibilities or characteristics, but they just evolve rapidly throughout the course of the film. And Alabama, she begins the film with a narration and closes it with a narration. So she is essentially the one telling us this story. She's not in throughout the entire film, but she bookends the movie with her narration. So this is kind of the story as seen through her eyes, and it's a very romanticized story. It is almost like a fairy tale fueled by crime and violence. But these characters are such kindred spirits, and it's never questioned once throughout the film their commitment to each other. If anything, it's heightened throughout all of the experiences they share in the film. So that's it for True Romance. Again, I cannot recommend this film enough. I could probably keep talking about it, so if you do watch it and you're interested, you should check out the Visually Hidden podcast, where we will be discussing it at length. And until next time, see ya!